Welcome to 2022. Can you believe it that we actually made it? It's January 7th. I am Gregory T. Roberts, your host for today. Before we start, I want to thank everybody. If you're listening to the program and would like to get involved, go to our feeds on Facebook on 103.7 The Beat or M106 and be part of the conversation. We have a huge show today. Also, uh, today, a pioneer, an actor, passed away today who was huge. Sidney Poitier passed away today. Um, so our condolences and our prayers out to him. We got a big show today. What I need you to do is, if you are Facebook, I need you to share this because we are going to talk about reparations. Oh, yeah, we're going to get down and dirty. Um, Let me introduce my co-host and get him in. Pastor Melvin Burns, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Happy New Year, my brother. How are you?
Happy New Year, man. I'm excited about the year. I'm excited about what's going on. It's going to be an exciting year. How was your New Year's?
It was good. It was peaceful, quiet. Excited about the new year and looking to see what it's going to bring us.
All right, it's 21 degrees outside. Like I said, you're not going to want to miss our show today. I know we came in a little late. It's because our guest, he was in court, and we are hopefully going to get him shortly. I want to thank Lady Janae. I want to thank Q89. I want to thank PA, about B Rob, everybody at the station for all the work that they do to get it done. Listen, this year we're really going to try to do everything that we can to educate you. We're not going to be like CNN. We're not going to be like Fox. We're not going to like lead you or MSNBC or MOUSE and try to lead you down rabbit holes. We're going to tell you the truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so do us a favor this year, this 2022. Pastor Melvin Burns and I will be going through a list of our top 10 things that you need to watch out for. For instance, I still have people, Pastor Melvin Burns, saying that COVID is not real. And those same people just got COVID.
Yeah, but we going into 2 years of this, you know.
It's blowing my mind. People catching it and still denying it. So people
Yeah,
don't go down those rabbit holes. This is real. These are things that are going on. Um, is there like mental health as well is
yes.
something that you want to watch out for? What is something that you think people need to watch out for in 2022?
Well, I think if you've been out purchasing and shopping, learn the word supply chain. If you go into the store, got new projects going on. Don't think everything's going to be on the shelves when you want to get out there. So you want to start learning what that term supply chain means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talked about COVID. We talked about your mental health.
Yeah, yeah,
Your mental health. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff that has been going on. We just talked about the death of the actor Sidney Poitier. I
yeah,
mean, it's a time to live, a time to die, and
yeah.
there are seasons in life that you need to be ready for.
Yes.
Listen, we are going to talk about reparations, and I am so glad to get this man in. Um, Welcome to the stage. Put your hands together for Todd Russell Perkins. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you? Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and thank you for coming to the show. And I want to say personally, this is a welcome place for you, and you can come and educate us anytime.
Well, I always believe education is collective. So, I learned as much from you as I do as you may from me, because I'm going to absorb everything like a sponge. So I believe it's the voice of the media and people like you that are able to get our message like a message. If without somebody like you, I'd just be a guy screaming on a corner,
Uh,
So it's a mutual level of respect there.
well, what we need you to do uh, is get on your soapbox and talk to this community about reparations.
Well, and as an aside, I would direct them to our website. It's called a timetorepair.com.
Okay.
No spaces, and a timetorepair.com. And it's something that we started as an organization we have an organization called the People's Voice. And the People's Voice is a social interactive or a social organization interested in social welfare. For a Black person, social welfare, in my opinion, only comes by way of reparations.
Okay.
And it's to establish the balance that's been offset over the generations and generations in which African Americans were not entitled to enjoy transitions of wealth. And we're not just talking about slavery either. Even after slavery, with Jim Crow, with redlining, with all of the different things that were implemented in a very strategic and insidious way, that we were denied a true opportunity to have what's the American dream. And how is most wealth accumulated? Most wealth is accumulated by way of inheritance.
Right.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people don't understand something about the value to Trump, the value that Trump brought to white America, or even white America, but wealthy Americans, but predominantly white Americans. But one of the aspects of it, well, it's a couple of different things. He was here to try to continue and disrupt the loss of white population in America through getting rid of abortion. That's how he changed the Supreme Court. And then, immigration. So, get them out of here. Remember, what did he say? I don't want people from those shithole countries. So what he's talking about when he says that, and I apologize if I'm not able to say that here, and I didn't mean it like that, but but that's what, our president of the United States said that on national TV. So I'm assuming we can say it here.
Not to even mention what he did with the census.
Oh, but it's all a coordinated plan, And one of the things I say about sometimes Black people, or whether we're talking about Black people or Democrats, those things are not interchangeable, because I don't think the Democratic Party supports us enough. But there are, in my opinion, I don't want to make it political, but I'm a Democrat. But but at the end of the day, so that's the other thing. And then the other thing was, remember when he first got in, he changed the tax code and he got rid of the death tax. And so what we're about to experience, and it was going to take 6 years. So what we're about to experience is one of the greatest transitions of unchecked wealth that's ever happened in the history of the world. And that was so that money could transition without being, and it's another like Reaganism. You know what Reagan did? Reagan got rid of social programs and he starved them to death so that they would stop existing. And that's how they fixed the issue of being able to reduce taxes, because they feel like, hey, we don't have any obligation to do these things. So, well, but in reparations, let's get back to it. Reparations is seeking nothing more than to give some parity and some equality in a world where even I think the most conservative individual, if they're going to be honest with you, the most diehard, what's the guy that just died? Had the talk show, Rush Limbaugh, diehard fan. If he's going to be honest, see, the fact that it matter is they don't like to be honest, but they're going to be honest about it. There's never really been any equality. People want to say, well, you can live the American dream. You just need to follow this program. But if I'm stopped in following it each and every way, then how realistic is it that I'm able to enjoy the American dream? So let me talk about where what happened in Detroit. And really, it's a cycle that's happening, and it's a positive momentum that's happening throughout points and pockets in the country.
Okay.
Is I became involved with it through some members of the Democratic Black Caucus in the Detroit area. Introduced, as a lawyer, sometimes I lose sense of what the current affairs are and the current events. And because I'm in court fighting cases, you got that tunnel vision, and that's just what you're doing. And you're fighting for this client right here because that's the most important. As you're arguing on a particular case, that is the most important person in the world, other than God, obviously. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's the most important person. So you lose sight of what's going on from current affairs and socio-demographic issues. I don't think you lose sight of those necessarily because you're trying cases in courts of law, and those things really always come up when you're picking juries because you're looking at that kind of those demographics. But we learned from in Illinois. So in Illinois, Evanston, Illinois, City Council passed reparations ordinance. And those individuals are now enjoying the benefit of reparations. And it's some people call it a token. My thing is, whether it's a token or not, for me, it's symbolic. Because when you see reparations in a successful component and in a successful light, what it means to me is that is an acknowledgement that what we've been talking about, about the disparity, the inequality, it does exist. The boogeyman is real. And as much as they want to say that, Black people crying about this and crying about that and not doing anything about it, no, me personally, I want that symbolism to reign into the fabric of America. And so what happens, and I was watching, you can watch a lot of stories on it. They actually had a 60 Minutes episode on it. Really gives you a short, 60 Minutes can't get really in depth in certain things, but they can talk about it enough that you can, and lead you to points that you can go, now that you have the internet available to you, can go watch a lot of these YouTubes and a lot of stories about what happened. But
right.
They talked about on a very general overview what happened, but also what happened after it. So people in Evanston, Illinois, I believe Blacks are able to get, I think, up to $25,000 credit. I don't have the specific numbers, but they're able to get a credit towards the purchase of a home, and that type of, and they're funding it through proceeds and revenues that are generated through
the marijuana, right? Marijuana.
So, and it's a new mechanism by which, look, people want to say, hey, our budget, cities' budgets and municipalities' budgets are already being pressured enough. So no one can say that revenues for marijuana are already infused into the budget. So if it's a new stream of revenue and you're attaching yourself to it before the city can get their hands on it, then you have a basis for saying that. So
we're surrounded around 13 marijuana shops right where we currently are.
Where are you at? I don't know what municipality.
We're in Muskegon.
Muskegon. Okay. All right.
And I know you. If you had a dime for every time you heard this statement, I got to put it out there. Well, I didn't do anything. That was a long time ago. I know you already hurt your head. Why should we be punished to give you anything because we didn't do anything?
Can I respond to that?
Oh yeah, I wanted you to.
Okay. All right. So and see, you already know the answers. So that's like a softball pitch for me, right? So thank you very much. But so here's when you say that. Number one, if you're a white person who says that, you're a white person, whether you intentionally enjoyed the benefit of being white or not, you have benefited because you're not Black. So what that means is that your parents, parents, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, and all the stream of individuals who were not black have benefited in the American dream, whether they took an opportunity to benefit from that or had an opportunity to benefit from that. It wasn't affected by the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So for them to say, I agree, no one in this world today exists who, although there was a story, it's a real troubling story that around the turn of the century, around 2000, there's a place in Mississippi, and I did a little research on that. I just don't have enough to talk about it right now with any depth. They found still people who thought that they were slaves.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, it's troubling. But when that white person says that, what they are is they're just discounting the reality of life. But that goes to show you their insensitivity. That goes to show their insolence. It goes to show their ignorance about the whole process under which people are compromised, discriminated against, and oppressed and suppressed. So here's the thing. My kids are in school. I've got younger kids. And they go to school and they're talking about how black people can be racist and things like that. There's no such thing and I see Mr. Burns smiling right there. He knows where I'm going with this. It's no such thing as in this country as a black person who can be racist using the specific definition of racism. Racism is the ability to oppress a faction of society, whether it be economically, socially, and so what that would require is for black people to control some industry of finance, some industry of media, some industry of infrastructure, and we don't. So we can be bigoted, we can be prejudiced, and we can be discriminatory. But even in the ability to discriminate, we still are not going to be able to be racist in the true definition of racism. So getting back to that person who's crying about the fact that I didn't have anything to do with it, then okay, let's talk about it from a factual perspective. You didn't have anything to do with it directly. You've benefited indirectly. Your ancestry benefited indirectly, and some of them down that line benefited directly. This period, come on now, this stop it. So that doesn't mean, and let's just take it. Let's say in 2022, and I'm a 40-year-old white male. Let's say from my great grandfather who was born in 1800. I'm just using an example. I have 5% of the wealth that he had, and now I have 10% of the wealth his father had. I'm just throwing numbers out here.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't be able, as an African American, to be able to co-opt myself to some of that 5%. I shouldn't be able to co-opt myself to some of that 10%. I shouldn't be able to co-opt myself some of that if because you can do this. There are economists and there's sociologists who can really, as a science, as imperfect a science as economics and sociology is, there's still a science, and along with the infusion of some mathematical equation, these quants and things like that who can create these algorithms, and there's a mechanism by which you can establish within a certain amount with a small area of a small ratio of error, how much that benefits you today, especially if they know something about their lineage, if they know something about their family, what they did, how much money they made by the tax rolls. You can do that. And so if that's the case and you own slaves, or if you did this, then you can't deny that just because you didn't benefit, you didn't directly benefit from it. But I take that back, because I want to take my words back. You are directly benefiting from it, even though your intention was not to directly benefit from. it's just, you can't be an objector to this, or a conscientious objector to this, when you're fully enveloped in the promise of America for whites to be preferred over blacks.
Another softball pitch coming at you.
Yeah.
Another softball pitch. But we grew up on the poor side, and we struggled just like you guys. So why should you guys be any special? We had to grow up just like you. So why should we not get any money?
But here's the thing. So in that equation, if you use that equation that you offered, but the thing is, the ability for me to be able to capture the American dream as an African American was repressed or taken away by the practices and the laws, even at some point in time. And they don't necessarily want to call them laws today, but by the people who are involved in the system. There's a systematic approach to keeping us black people on the bottom tier. Now, your circumstantial event of you having struggled, but as a white person, you still had more opportunity than the black person did. You just did, because you were not discriminated against like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just I saw somebody say something about reverse racism. That I don't know what that is. That's a fallacy. That's nothing. I mean, I don't even entertain.
It just came up. Let's go back to that question. Means that any non-POC that tries to say it's reverse racism is ignorant as can be. By define, it's believing your race is superior and attempting to prove it, so being suppressing others being able to do so in housing, in careers, in healthcare, etc. They are full of it. They are full of it. And even worse are poor whites. And it goes on. Thank you for that comment.
Oh no, something. More to the point of what I was saying. I like the fact that what I'm saying has and resonates with your listening audience, in that I didn't know what they said. I just saw the reverse racism, and that's a fallacy. And for that lady who wrote that very intelligent, probably better than I could say it, statement, that's exactly what I was saying. I mean, I was saying it maybe not in as artful a way as she did, but that's it in a nutshell right there, as it relates to the reverse racism. So let's get back, getting back to that person. So I think that not only my response, but even more so, I can't pronounce Marianne's last name, and I apologize. And I don't want to mess it up, but I can pronounce Marianne. I can read that. I think that answers the question about the person who says, well, I struggled just like you, but you didn't struggle just like me. You may have had the unfortunate circumstance of not being successful, but it wasn't because of your race. It was the circumstances and the cards that you were dealt. We just want fair share at the cards.
Right. Michael Anthony Smith from Houston, Texas says, in Evanston, Illinois' plan is great, but it will still be compromised by systematic racism. Reparations in this country for black people won't happen. Your opinion?
See, Michael Anthony Smith will never be a great litigator. He might even be a lawyer. I'm just messing with him right now. But, I say that it's going to happen because I have to speak positivity into existence for those things to occur, right? But what he says, I mean, can I fight him on that? Can I,
that we're here to learn.
From an intellectual standpoint, can I fight? I mean, it has that statement that he has, as disappointing as it may be, it is a lot of people's reality. Here's where I come in with reparations. Clearly, that brother knows about the Evanston, Illinois plan. He's able to speak about it. And, and here is what happened. Let me give you an example. So in the city of Detroit, I got involved in it. Again, I stepped away from my practice. I was still practicing, but I stepped away and let some of my partners do some more of my work. And I still kept doing some cases. And it came at a time where, the benefit of this past year was that we're still enveloped with COVID and we weren't really litigating cases a lot. We had very few trials, which allowed me the opportunity to go around here on this soapbox talking and preaching about Black empowerment, Black economic empowerment, which I believe, it's kind of, I don't know if I can say it again or you can mute me out, but it's like the statement my dad said, and this is why I tell it's reparations is so important from an economic standpoint, because my dad always said, hey, the world is like a shit sandwich. The more bread you got, the less shit you taste. and so, it is. And so what happens is if people are able to have the opportunity unfettered, unchecked by the fact that they're Black, and let's not use those statistics and things like that or the barometers that everybody's going to be treated the same on this particular barometer. But if at the beginning from birth, if I'm told or if I'm put in a situation, an ability to compete that's not the same as a person who's white, then when we get 17 and 18 and we're supposed to be competing for the same thing, you don't think that you have a distinct advantage over my ability to compete with you?
Wow.
And the very fact that I'm able to compete doesn't come in your mind to the extent that this person throughout all these challenges is competing with me. Just imagine if I took those governors off of him and let him be like a free market capitalist individual and infuse that into the spirit of this individual. The ability to be successful might be infinitely greater than mine. This is another person saying it. Look at, okay, let me give you another example about what I think that some of the fear and what Mr. Smith is talking about. And if we want to go through a history lesson, let's talk about post-slavery, post-1865, when the era of Reconstruction. So you had a growth in white and Black wealth, Black empowerment that was so vast and so, that was so exceptional. It's never been something seen like that in the history of the world.
Wait, but isn't it amazing that people don't know that the slave owners were given reparations for they were given reparations, but nobody talks about that.
Yeah, you have to go back and there's a lot of information out here. What is it? Henry Louis Gates. He did a phenomenal. It's on PBS. I suggest people buy it. I had it DVR'd one time until my kids got rid of it, so I gotta buy it because it's something. It's a several part series about post slavery in America, and it is at the beginning of it. It is something that it lends the spirit of excitement, even as I'm watching it 150, 160 years later, right? And then it comes back with the whipsaw of Jim Crow to suppress it and all of the steps that they took to suppress this desire. And see what they've done today, and they've tried to do in our community today is to infuse a certain sense of malaise and in us and a belief that we can't be successful. That's why I can't go with Michael Anthony Smith. As much as I believe the brother's intelligent, I believe he knows what he's talking about. I just can't follow that. I'm not going to allow myself to say that it won't happen. Oh, so here's the point. So in Detroit, I had so you can Google it. That's my Black Lives Matter sign, right? So I live in I was living in a fairly exclusive white community. Had been there for some years. Still have lived there or own the property, but and last year during the election cycle. So this is my birth and my segue into reparations. I always knew what reparations was. I was a history major and things like that. But the stuff that you're getting now, as far as the detailed information about history, even though I went to an Ivy League college, right? And I was a history major, and I'm learning more about history in the streets than I did in that fine institution. I love that school, but it didn't teach me like it's teaching me now. Now I think also information is traveling faster. So to that extent, we didn't have the internet. But so last year, so I am so they sent our kids home. Let me give you a time cycle, right? They sent our kids home in March of last year, of 2020, 2 years ago now, almost. Sent our kids home. And so when at my kids' school, my kids go to Catholic school, and you know, they gave out this sign. By the time they closed the school down, and they said we weren't going to have any more school that year because we didn't know what COVID was going to be about. They gave out that George Floyd had happened. And when George Floyd happened, you know, a lot of people surround, you know, because I truly also believe that the true rise and the true level of equality is going to be a rise of the proletariat. And what I mean by that is the working class, keep the upper class from keeping blacks and whites separate from each other. You know, one of the things that you got to understand, one of the moving things that, you know, I'm so sad that the prosecutors weren't able to be successful in convicting that boy Rittenhauser of something. But here, let's talk about it. I'm the guy who's the glass half full, because as Michael Anthony Smith will recognize, I am a guy who's glass half full. I'm not gonna let myself say that reparations ain't gonna happen now, right? Yeah, but he's got another statement here too, and I'm sure it's wise and beyond his years. But so
very right.
But the thing is, and let's talk about that very succinctly or very briefly. Those martyrs, I call them martyrs, even if people say they were stupid as to what they did and how they interacted with Kyle Rittenhouse, those were white folks. You know what I'm saying? Those were white folks who were down with the cause. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's going to take white people to be involved and be engaged, and, you know, and to understand, even even if they're not able to truly understand what it's able to be like, but to desire to want to try. Let's not mute that. Let's not take that away from them. If they're trying, let's help them. You know what I'm saying? So, but okay. So going back, let me tell you, and then I don't want to monopolize everything, but I got to get you this story. So
please.
So then the school was giving out Black Lives Matter signs, little Black Lives Matter signs. And so they gave out the little Black Lives Matter signs and put it on my front lawn, and it's an election year. So I didn't really have a Trump Biden sign out there, or, you know, I didn't have a presidential sign. Obviously, I would have had Biden. And I didn't have one of those signs. I had some judicial signs out there, some judges that I supported on front of my lawn, because in my community, Trump won big time. You know, that's the community that I was living in, you know, so I knew where I was at. But, you know, at one point in time, I wanted to say something deeper and stronger, and I was going to do it in a sign. So I called this big time radio personality here, Mildred Gaddis. I called Mildred up, and, you know, she's connected politically. I said, Mildred, I need a sign as big as you can get. I want a 5x5 foot sign to put on. So Mildred called me up, she got the signs for me, and, you know, and she was gonna pay for them. I said, no, I'll pay for them. And I went and picked up the signs, and the biggest they could make was 4x4. So that's a 4x4 foot sign, right? So I put it on my front lawn, and I couldn't put it in the ground. I didn't have a frame, so I nailed it to the tree. That's the only way it would stay up. So all the way up to the election, nobody said anything, and I didn't realize what was going on in the community. They, you know, my neighbors, other than my next door neighbor, and you know, the guy in Indians next door, he was my guy. He was cool. And there was another, the white guy across the street, couple white guys across the street. We spoke, and we were very, you know, cordial. The rest of the community, they didn't really say anything, and I didn't really ask for it. I just wanted a community that was safe. I didn't spend a lot of time at home because I'm working, and when my wife comes home with the kids at night, she feels safe. That was why we were there. And the school system is, you know, the public school system, even though we started sending our kids to Catholic school, the public school system was an option too, because it was a good system. So I put this sign out there. So after the election, I don't know if you had the same storm. You might have had the same storm because we get the same kind of storms, other than you guys out there get that lake effect snow a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you had this huge windstorm about a week and a half after. It was a Sunday, not the Sunday after the presidential election, but the week after that. There was a huge windstorm and knocked down everything. And so my sign got knocked down. So I mentioned my brother next door, my homeboy next door, the Indian brother. He calls me up and says, "Hey, your sign's down." So he puts it in the garage. And he puts it in the garage. And then I later on that week, I put it back up on a Friday. So as soon as I put it up, and I didn't know, because you know how sometimes your mailbox is here, and I don't go through my front door. I go into our house through our garage. So that's how I always enter the house. I never use the front door, and I never really go to the mailbox because you pay your bills online. So the mail that's there is usually junk mail. So within 2 hours of having put the sign back up, I had a notice that from the police department that said there have been multiple calls, and they're giving me 4 days by way of the ordinance to take the sign down.
On your own property.
On my own property. Here's the thing. The ordinance they have a sign ordinance, and the laws for political candidates or political initiatives, like, Proposal S, Proposal A, that type of thing. Signs could be no larger than 7 square feet, which are the typical signs, like 3 feet by 2 feet and things like that. Those are 7 square feet, no bigger than that. And you couldn't really have them on your lawn after the election cycle.
Period.
And that's kind of how the community would police itself. Well, when I found out about this, I went to my mailbox. Not that week, but my mailbox was overflowing with mail. So I finally went in, got the stuff out of my mailbox. There was this police report in there, and it said, we're gonna write you a ticket on the day before Thanksgiving. That's the 4 days was up, or 3 or 4 business days was up by that time. So it's about 4 days after that I get it out the box. And when I got it, I was hot. I was angry. I called the media. And so you can Google these stories. Newsweek actually did a short story on it too. So it went national. And, lawyer, Grosse Pointe Shore's lawyer is ticketed for Black Lives Matter sign. And so I was hot. So the media is coming to my house on a regular basis. And so finally I'm in the house one day and they knock on the front door. I open the front door and I realized, true to his word, I thought they just hadn't given me the ticket. True to his word, the ticket was taped to my front door. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'll be darned. They actually did write me a ticket. So I kept on doing the news stories. I got my homeboys together in the legal community. I have a brother, I call him, he's a brother of mine. He's Jewish. And we always talked about, when I moved to Grosse Pointe, Grosse Pointe's, if you ever read The Great Gatsby, for the community, Grosse Pointe would be like East Egg. And, where I stay now, which is in Bloomfield, that's West Egg, so old money, new money. And the old money, like the Fords and families like that, that's where they stay or used to stay. And so, so he used to tell me, this guy named Joe Scar, who became one of my lawyers on the case, and Gerald Evelyn and Robert Higbee, I had the United Nations on my team. I had a Black guy, I had myself, I had a white guy, and then I had a Jewish guy. But the reason why I went and got Joel, because not only do we do a lot of work together and do a lot of good civil rights work together, but he told me about the story. When I first moved out there, he was like, he says, that might be the one location where Blacks are ahead of Jews. He says, because his grandfather was denied the opportunity to buy a house in the Grosse Pointes because he was Jewish on a restricted covenant. So it was important for me to go back and call him up and see if he had the time to get involved with the lawsuit. And he did, and he worked his tail off. And, I had to step back because the judge knows us all as lawyers, because it was filed in federal court. he's like, hey, tell Perkins take a bender. You know what I'm saying? Let his lawyers do the job because I'm sitting there writing motions. You don't represent yourself. You don't represent yourself.
Is that about attorneys making horrible clients?
Oh, they do. Oh, they do. After that, I settled in and I felt a good client. And and when the lawyers asked me for information, I'd write it up and do some things that they couldn't write from the spirit of it, how it affected them. I got hate mail, so it was a whole host of things. And then the case settled. And everybody could not believe that, what it was is that the community just wanted it to go away. They just wanted it to go away. And they paid a lot of money. They paid a lot of money for that indiscretion, because my point was, you're going to cite me for a sign like this is a big sign, but you weren't citing those people with them Trump signs. But more importantly, this is not a political agenda.
Not a political sign.
This is not a candidate. This is a way of life for me and something that I'm trying to show my kids, and also there's a fair amount of guilt in my life. I've had a life in which, I'm working, and how much have I given to the cause? You know what I mean? So I'm coming out at 50 years old, guns blazing, I'm like angry and everything like this, because I'm also got the guilt and like, I haven't done my role like the rest of these people. When you got a guy like George Floyd, who's probably never thought that he would be the iconic figure that he is, but his life has meaning when it otherwise might not have, in a sense. God has a heck of a way of putting us in position, and that's what he stood for. And, look how he's mobilized, so many communities. Mobilized, I believe, the idea of reparations in a bigger way. Not necessarily the actual thing that, because there's people who have been involved in reparations who were, who from the beginning, but he was a great catalyst to move it along, And so what I did was I took that money from that lawsuit and I fueled the reparations, got signatures. I had to fight the city of Detroit to keep reparations that I wanted, or that the people's voice wanted, on the ballot. Can you believe that? But we got a white mayor. We got a white mayor who doesn't understand and doesn't really see the impactfulness of and the idea of reparations, but he wouldn't speak out about it. Now, I give him credit for that. He wasn't going to speak out about it. He's a savvy guy. He's a lawyer himself. And, but I just don't think that there's a sensitivity to recognize, why not come to me and say, okay, is there some way that we can work this out? Never a conversation. I didn't, then, I get the House Negroes who were in office. I got absolutely no support. And I'm not saying all of them are House Negroes, but, some of them have their own agendas that they're fighting, but a lot of them are House Negroes. That just, they laugh after everybody starts laughing, and they stop laughing before everybody stops. They just want to keep that position, and they're more concerned about the position and the stature and the status than what it takes to keep on fighting for what's right.
Mr. Perkins.
Yes,
Mr. Perkins, we got 7 minutes, man. So
what are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do? What do we need to do?
Okay, so what happened in Detroit, we have a reparations now. We had R and we had S. I was the proponent of S. S was the economic fuel that would push the reparations agenda, and it didn't pass. But R passed, which meant that they created a sort of a working committee to discuss whether or not reparations could be implemented. To me, that was kicking the can down the road. But one of the reasons why I got involved in reparations here, and I looked at the city of Detroit as moving the ball of reparations, because in order for HR 40 is the bill that John Conyers used to talk about in the House, and he would bring it up every year. It was every year about reparations. And see, what people don't understand, it wasn't to implement reparations. These white folks didn't even want to have a conversation or a study about reparations, because if you study it, the science and the results of the study are going to show you that there's clear disparity that will only be corrected and repaired by reparations. And I looked at, here's what we have to do. Places like Evanston, Illinois. There's a place in Massachusetts. I believe there's a municipality in North Carolina. And I look at Detroit, and we've got it moving here. It's just, it needs a shot in the arm. But I look at throughout these communities, urban communities. Maybe Muskegon's next. Maybe Flint is next. And then using that and propelling that momentum and causing a groundswell throughout the entire country. Because my goal is, once it gets up and running in Detroit and people see how it is, and to recognize the value that it brings, because I believe as the tide rises, all ships rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why I think reparations on a grand level, like a city like Detroit, is so impactful, that you can then take it from Detroit and take it to Atlanta. Then you take it from Atlanta, then you take it to Tallahassee, then you take it from Tallahassee, and then you go to Chicago. Then you take it from Chicago, you go to St. Louis. And so now you get all these, you bring in this partnership amongst all these urban communities. And then they're going to be white people that see the value. Because in Evanston, Illinois, I missed out on this point. Once it was implemented, then you had private sector businesses recognize the value and the commitment to reparations, that they started a lot of their own, they fueled a lot of reparations type of programs, in a private sector capacity. So it doesn't always have to come from government, but you have to have government as the backstop, so that it, that it comes in there, and you use the laws and the courts to put it in place.
Would you agree with this statement that we have to stop waiting for people to make things happen? We need to make things happen.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the softballs, because you give me a soapbox and I can scream.
I'm pitching now.
Hey, as my dad said, you chunking that ball, ain't you? But no, absolutely. But the thing is, it's the work. It's almost like, by the time, and I like to use analogies a lot of times. By the time you see a guy like Russell Wilson, or, it doesn't have to be black, or Aaron Rodgers, by the time you see him in the second, third game of the season, the real work was what he did in February and March and April. And they had to do those things on their own, because the team doesn't require them to do that. But look at the athleticism today. And I equate that to what we need to be doing as a people. Those guys, those athletes never get out of shape now. Remember Jerry Ball? Probably one of the greatest tackles that ever lived. But in the off season, Jerry get up to 350 pounds. But you never see LeBron. He spends several millions of dollars on body configuration, because that's what he's doing. We need to be doing that. And like my dad always says, we need to stop buying what we want and begging for what we need.
Oh, you're pretty good now. Now we got to pass the plate.
I'm telling, because look, I didn't have anybody. I had a couple of people support me financially, and and I had that, but I didn't have people saying, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, good job." I'm like, okay, where's the money? I need money. I need help. I got you. That. What that means. I got you.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have to start doing the work. And here's the thing: if we do the work, we're the example to not only just our children, we're the example to other white people. I mean, there's a lot of white people out there that understand, clearly understand.
Can I say this? Because we got into. Can we have you back on the show soon? Because this is like a part 2. I know you're a busy man. We have a plethora of questions and people's statements, but we would love to have you back on the show.
I would love to, something anytime. I'll make the opportunity. I'll make the effort to enjoy the opportunity.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, this is Todd Russell Perkins, and it's blowing my mind. Pastor Burns, you were just sitting up there listening.
No need to interrupt when somebody's talking, and I appreciate the content, so I didn't need to interrupt. I got about half a page of questions, so when Brother Perkins comes back, we'll continue.
We're going to have.
All right. I look forward to it, brothers.
We're going to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Torn in Two. We're talking about reparations. I'm so excited. I'm spitting over here. Todd Russell Perkins, thank you so much. I need you to come back and break this down even further. A lot of people, we didn't get to your questions because we wanted to hear what this man had to say, because it is too important for us to sit back and not do nothing. Thank you. This is Torn in Two. It's 2022. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.
Thank you, brother.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you.